Ryan Reynolds is now caught talking about staring at a stranger who was feeding their baby.
I just kept on staring and staring and staring, and then I just kind of got locked into that like a time warp. And
Ryan Reynolds just got slammed by Blake Lively after a sexual harassment victim accused him of destroying her life. And honestly, it's a total mess.
And it sounds so bad given Blake's complaint now. I can't even.
Blake's had a rough time trying to get sympathy with her harassment claims, but now her own husband is turning the whole thing into a joke, eyeing up women breastfeeding and calling it funny.
This isn't a funny joke if you find it so sensitive when it happens to your wife. It's not funny, Ryan. This whole thing was nuts. Nothing Blake's accusing Justin of was even that bad.
And do you want to know why this whole scandal is going to wreck Blake? Well, because her entire lawsuit against Justin Baldoni basically revolves around one big claim, that he sexually harassed her in multiple ways.
The one about, he burst in on me uninvited when I was breastfeeding my child. She says we should run lines together. He's like, anytime. And she's like, come on over. I'm breastfeeding the baby in the trailer, but come on over.
And yeah, one of those offenses apparently includes him walking in the trailer while she was breastfeeding. She framed it as a moment of deep humiliation, something that made her feel unsafe on set, something that her husband, Ryan Reynolds, supposedly found so offensive that he took it upon himself to back her up in the most aggressive way possible.
She invited him in, and a lot of women are comfortable having someone around when they breastfeed, so it's not so weird, especially out in Hollywood, for him to assume, yeah, I guess she's fine with this because she did let him in. Ryan Reynolds comes off terribly.
He went after Baldoni publicly and privately, making it clear that what Baldoni did was unacceptable, that no man should ever be in a position to intrude on a woman's privacy like that.
got me staring, and I didn't know what the appropriate facial expression was for that. So I just kept on staring and staring and staring, and then I just kind of got locked into that like a time warp.
But here's where it all starts falling apart, because Ryan himself has done the exact same thing, and worse. And he was so comfortable with it that he actually joked about it in public.
That video is a response to a question a fan had asked Ryan Reynolds, asking, if you had a time machine, which historical event would you like to go back in time to witness?
This isn't just speculation or some whispered Hollywood rumor. Ryan Reynolds, on national television, openly admitted that he once stared at a breastfeeding mother in a hotel lobby for several minutes. He wasn't just passing by.
Now Ryan Reynolds can go do this as the time event he wants to go back and revisit when he stared at a stranger doing the same thing?
He wasn't just glancing in her direction. He was locked in, making prolonged eye contact, while this woman, who was fully covered, sat there confused and uncomfortable, wondering why some random man wouldn't stop staring at her while she was feeding her child.
Wants to sue. Yeah, she says that's sexual harassment. Pick one. Would you like this woman to come back in time and sue you now?
And Ryan? He told this story like it was some hilarious anecdote, cracking jokes about how awkward it was while completely ignoring the fact that he had done exactly what his wife accused Baldoni of doing.
Or is your wife being ridiculous? Tell us which one is facts.
Think about the sheer hypocrisy here. Blake Lively, who claims to be a champion for women, turned an entire lawsuit into a crusade over eye contact being harassment. She dragged Baldoni's name through the mud over something that, if we're following her logic, her own husband should now be legally accountable for. And Ryan? He stood behind her, playing the perfect supportive husband, while knowing damn well that he had done something even more blatant and never faced any consequences for it.
But Ryan Reynolds, one of the things he allegedly exploded on Justin Baldoni over was alleged fat shaming of Blake, because I guess when she was shooting this movie, she was postpartum.
Now, of course, Blake would never call Ryan's actions harassment. That would mean holding him to the same standard she holds every other man to, and that's not how this power couple operates. They set their own rules. When it's convenient, they're the moral authority on sexual misconduct. When it's not, they laugh off their own questionable behavior and expect the public to ignore the contradiction. But the internet never forgets.
Blake Lively mad at James Heath for looking at her and staring at her in the eyes, directly at her while she was blank.
And here's where things get even worse. Blake Lively's own accusations become completely unhinged when compared to her husband's actions. She accused another man, Jamie Heath, of sexual misconduct for simply making eye contact while she was pumping milk.
Getting ready to feed her baby. All this is the complaint that was made, which she later says, oh, I don't think you were trying to cop a look, but whatever. This whole complaint about he was there uncomfortably while she was pumping. It's insane.
She didn't claim he touched her, didn't claim he said anything inappropriate, just that he looked in her direction. This was enough for her to label him a predator, enough to add another layer of drama to her case, enough to expect the public to rally behind her and see her as a victim.
It's insane. But now Ryan Reynolds can go do this as the Time event. He wants to go back and revisit when he stared at a stranger doing the same thing.
Media critics didn't take long to point this out. Elrich, one of the more vocal figures analyzing this lawsuit, mocked the absurdity of Blake's claims.
Assistant, while Lively is having body makeup removed, she was not topless as she claimed in her complaint. She was either nursing or pumping while fully clothed. Lively asked Heath to face the wall while they determined a time to meet with the other producers who were standing just outside the door.
If eye contact is harassment, then shouldn't Ryan Reynolds face the exact same scrutiny? Shouldn't he be held accountable for humiliating a woman in public? Shouldn't he be the one dragged through the mud in a lawsuit? Of course, none of that will happen, because this was never really about justice or boundaries. It was about control, about power, about weaponizing accusations for personal gain.
Weeks later, on June 1st, 2023, Lively accuses Heath of making eye contact with her while she had asked him to face the wall.
And let's talk about Ryan's hypocrisy specifically. Because if you think the breastfeeding incident is just a one-off example, think again. This is a consistent pattern. Ryan has built his entire public image on being this snarky, self-aware, funny guy. But the more you look into his past behavior, the more you realize that a lot of his jokes don't age well.
I would like to get that woman some fucking compensation. It's okay when you do it. It's a problem when other people do it. Interesting. You just stood there and stared because you didn't know what to do. You're a grown man. You're a married man. You're a father. You've seen a woman breastfeeding before. Why were you staring at this woman?
His entire career is littered with moments where he's made women uncomfortable, pushed the boundaries of what's acceptable, and gotten away with it because he hides behind comedy. But when another man does it, suddenly it's a crime worthy of a lawsuit. And it's not just the media catching on, it's the public too. People are not buying into Blake and Ryan's selective outrage anymore. The internet has called them out for picking and choosing when to be offended, when to play the victim, and when to weaponize identity politics for their own benefit. And the backlash is already starting to show.
Here your wife is saying she asked somebody to look at the wall because she was pumping or nursing or whatever.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds spent years carefully crafting their Hollywood power couple image. Two untouchable A-listers who not only ruled the box office but also positioned themselves as the industry's favorite celebrity couple. But now, that illusion is crumbling fast. The very people who once championed them, the same stars who once showered them with public support, are now backing away at record speed. And it's not just minor figures in the industry. Their closest allies, the people they relied on to maintain their elite status, are cutting ties.
This isn't a funny joke if you find it so sensitive when it happens to your wife. It's not funny, Ryan.
But she wants to sue. Yeah, she says that's sexual harassment.
One of the biggest blows to this carefully controlled image? Taylor Swift. For years, Blake and Taylor were inseparable, publicly flaunting their friendship on social media, spending holidays together, and positioning themselves as an unstoppable force in Hollywood. But now, Swift wants nothing to do with Blake Lively's mess. And it's not just speculation. The cracks in their friendship are now fully visible.
Ryan Reynolds comes off terribly. He had them over to their penthouse in New York, and Taylor Swift was believed to be there, according to this latest complaint.
The Daily Mail dropped the first bombshell. Justin Baldoni's legal team planned to subpoena Taylor Swift as part of the ongoing lawsuit. Why? Because Blake had been name-dropping Taylor behind the scenes, allegedly using her influence to pressure industry figures in ways Swift never signed off on.
Blake personally, with Ryan's help, rewrote scenes, again, not within the purview of an actress, And then after that, they have text messages in which Blake tells Justin, this is in the latest lawsuit, you know, I know you've never watched Game of Thrones, but when you get around to watching it, you'll realize I'm Khaleesi.
This instantly sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Was Blake Lively exploiting her friendship with Swift to strengthen her own legal position? And more importantly, was Swift even aware of it? According to TMZ, the answer is no. Reports suggest that Taylor Swift felt completely blindsided by the entire situation. She allegedly had no idea that her name was being leveraged in legal circles and was reportedly furious when she found out.
Of Justin Baldoni before this whole thing. I mean, who the hell is he? I guess he's in some small thing I never saw, but she's saying, F with me and we'll crush you. My dragons and I, the biggest movie star, one of them in the planet, the biggest pop star in the planet, and I will hurt you unless I get my way. So
this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a calculated move by Lively, one that put Swift in the crosshairs of a legal battle she had nothing to do with. And Swift's team wasted no time in responding. The PR silence was deafening. Swift, who has never shied away from defending her friends when it matters, refused to issue a single statement of support for Lively. Her PR team, which usually controls every aspect of her public image with surgical precision, made the conscious decision to let Blake fend for herself.
And now he's going full Johnny Depp on her to show that she was the bully, she was the one harassing him, and this guy who had, comparatively very little power was forced now to come out and tell the truth about Blake Lively.
No Instagram posts, no press comments, no damage control whatsoever. It was a clear sign that Swift was stepping away from this disaster, refusing to let her name be dragged into Blake and Ryan's sinking ship. But Swift wasn't the only one distancing herself. Blake's own co-stars were making it clear they didn't want to be part of this drama either. The most obvious example? Brandon Sklenar, her It Ends With Us co-star. When asked about the lawsuit and whether he supported Blake, Sklenar refused to take a side. He dodged questions, gave vague responses, and ultimately chose silence over defending his leading lady.
Blake Lively and getting hired again because all of her diva antics are coming out and the way she behaves behind the scenes. And now this with the lawsuit and the New York Times thing, because she's now filed against him as well. So it's a terrible move by her and them PR-wise.
And this wasn't just seen as neutrality, it was seen as cowardice. In Hollywood, where public loyalty is everything, his hesitation spoke volumes. If Sklenar truly believed in Lively's claims, if he had seen something on set that supported her accusations, why wouldn't he speak up? Why would he remain silent while the industry was watching? His refusal to stand with her only reinforced what many were already thinking, that no one in Hollywood wanted to be dragged down with Blake Lively.
Well, now they've produced the text messages, Baldoni and team, in this latest lawsuit against her, showing Justin being like, don't worry about any of that. We can shoot any scenes that require, exposure toward the end of the movie when, you feel better about things. This is the last thing you should have to worry about.
And the backlash isn't just limited to co-stars and close friends. The industry itself is starting to turn against Ryan and Blake in ways they never saw coming. Hollywood runs on optics and brand loyalty. And when an actor or actress starts losing public favor, the domino effect is brutal. That's exactly what's happening here.
Look who's here at the Oscars last night, Deadpool!
Someone who's not even nominated, Dancing Deadpool!
No one even clapped. No one even clapped. No one even clapped when Dancing Deadpool.
One of the most humiliating moments of this downfall, the Deadpool disaster at the Oscars. Ryan Reynolds has spent years positioning himself as Hollywood's king of self-aware humor, using his Deadpool character as a way to constantly break the fourth wall and engage with audiences in a way that makes him seem relatable and cool. But at this year's Oscars, something happened that no one expected.
And interestingly enough, they did clap when a sandworm playing the piano came in. Playing chopsticks, because that was kind of funny. Why was there a dancing Deadpool? Look, I liked Conan last night. That was probably the worst joke of the night.
Deadpool made a surprise appearance, the kind of cameo that, under normal circumstances, would have led to thunderous applause from the audience. But this time, silence. No one clapped. The reaction was awkward, a clear sign that Ryan Reynolds' once-beloved charm was wearing off. In an industry that thrives on adoration, this lack of enthusiasm was a glaring warning sign. The very people who used to worship him weren't interested anymore.
You know, you're very supportive over your female co-stars as well. Blake Lively, how are you hoping to support her during this time?
I mean, I just, it's a tough situation, and
No, it's not.
And it's not just public perception that's shifting, it's also affecting their business deals. One of the most telling moments, Ryan Reynolds' aviation gin was quietly replaced in a movie featuring Blake Lively. This might seem like a minor detail, but in Hollywood, branding is everything.
Yeah, this time there won't be aviation gin. It'll be his gin. Paul Feig has his own gin, and good for him. He gets to tell Blake no and get his in instead.
For years, Reynolds has been pushing aviation gin in every way possible, leveraging his celebrity status to cement it as the go-to gin brand in the industry. Yet, in a movie where his own wife was staring, his brand was swapped out for Paul Feig's gin brand instead. That's not just a coincidence, that's a deliberate move. A move that suggests industry figures are starting to pull back from Ryan Reynolds, distancing themselves from the controversy.
Yeah, it's because he has his own Arlington, what is this called? Ardingstall's brilliant London dry gin is going to be included in this over aviation because they don't have competing gin brands. So,
because let's be honest, Hollywood only stays loyal as long as you're profitable. Once the public starts turning against you, the industry will too. Brand deals, sponsorships, partnerships, they all rely on public perception. And right now, the public is souring on Blake and Ryan at a rapid pace.
Interestingly enough, Ryan's gin pushed out of a movie for the, but not really nefariously because he has his own gin. But
the worst part for them? This isn't even the peak of the backlash. More and more people in Hollywood are starting to see the contradictions, the hypocrisy, the carefully manufactured PR image falling apart in real time. The silence from Swift's camp, the awkwardness from Blake's co-stars, the industry pulling away from Ryan, it's all building up to something bigger. And if this trend continues, their downfall won't just be a temporary setback. It will be a permanent stain on their reputations. The Hollywood elite can pretend to ignore the drama for only so long before it starts affecting their own bottom line.
Bro, you look awful. You're not getting favors from either side at this point, I imagine. You're only digging yourself a hole.
And on the other hand, we see Ryan Reynolds' obsession with control over Blake Lively, and this isn't speculation. It's documented, confirmed, and outright disturbing. The carefully cultivated public image of a laid-back funny guy is nothing more than a Hollywood mirage, hiding a man so insecure that he went to extreme lengths to dictate every aspect of his wife's professional life.
I don't think you were trying to cop a look, but whatever. This whole complaint about he was there uncomfortably while she was pumping, it's insane.
And now, thanks to leaked text messages and legal filings, the industry is seeing the real Ryan Reynolds, a man whose paranoia over his wife's independence led to bizarre, desperate, and downright manipulative behavior. It all started during the filming of It Ends With Us, the movie that has now spiraled into one of the biggest Hollywood scandals in recent history. While most husbands would be proud of their wives landing a lead role in a highly anticipated film, Ryan saw it as a threat. Why? Because it meant Blake would be spending time away from him. And worse, it meant she'd be working closely with Justin Baldoni.
With actors. Right. And I'll never forget being privy to this movie and going, I can't believe this guy. We had so much hope for this guy. He's going nowhere.
The text messages tell the full story. Ryan Reynolds panicked over the idea of Blake being away for months. So much so that he personally begged Baldoni to shift the entire film's production schedule. And it wasn't a casual request. He was frantic. He admitted in messages that he had tried everything to fix the scheduling on his end, but couldn't because Deadpool and Wolverine was already locked in. So what did he do? He pressured Baldoni to change his schedule instead. And this wasn't just a polite ask. Ryan was relentless. He pressured, manipulated, and guilt-tripped Baldoni, framing the request as if it were life or death. The texts paint a picture of a man so consumed with controlling Blake's whereabouts that he couldn't stomach the idea of her working without him nearby. He needed to be in control.
And she said, I remember this interview from 10 years ago.
But the desperation didn't stop at begging. He went even further. One of the most shocking revelations from these messages, Ryan actually claimed he'd get a tattoo on his perineum. Yes, the area between his genitals and anus, if Baldoni could somehow change the production dates. This wasn't a joke. It was an actual part of his plea. Think about how insane that is. Who offers to permanently mark one of the most sensitive areas of their body just to get a movie schedule changed? This is next-level control freak behavior. It shows just how obsessed he was with making sure Blake Lively's work revolved around him. And if a public figure is this unhinged in private text messages, just imagine what goes on behind closed doors.
That the moral crimes committed here by Ryan Reynolds against Justin Baldoni have amounted to high treason. After having read through the amended lawsuit, Ryan absolutely must go home, and I have got some major scoops.
And the control didn't stop at filming schedules. Ryan made sure Blake's career choices were strategically managed so she'd never be out of his orbit. Allegedly, he manipulated her work schedule to always align with his, making it nearly impossible for her to take on projects that would require them to be apart for extended periods. This wasn't a coincidence. It was planned. He wasn't just a concerned husband. He was engineering Blake's entire professional life to ensure she wasn't too independent.
Yes, Liz Plank, who was Justin Baldoni's co-host on their podcast, Man Enough. The same Liz Plank that jumped ship just a few days after Blake Lively filed her legal complaint against Justin Baldoni. Not only did Liz Plank post this photo in 2019 thanking Ryan freaking Reynolds,
but it didn't stop there. Ryan wasn't just trying to control where Blake worked. He was also actively controlling how she was perceived in the media. When Blake started getting bad press, especially criticism about her lackluster promotion for It Ends With Us, Ryan allegedly took over her PR strategy and went straight to Baldoni's team with an outrageous demand.
22. Caption, thanks to Ryan and Rob for letting me psychoanalyze them and talk about butts on TV.
He wanted them to issue a public statement taking all the blame for Blake's bad image. And this wasn't just a generic PR statement. Ryan and Blake literally drafted the statement themselves and tried to force Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios to sign off on it. The statement was carefully crafted to absolve Blake of all responsibility while shifting the blame entirely onto the production team. The statement, which was later exposed in legal filings, read, "It Ends With Us was a troubled production, which we take full accountability for. We are very sorry to everyone we caused upset to, privately and publicly. Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, and the entire cast led with professionalism every step of the way. Any negativity aimed at them is ours to own." This wasn't just manipulative, it was a full-blown PR power play. Ryan was literally trying to rewrite the entire public narrative surrounding the film to paint his wife as the innocent victim while everyone else took the fall. And the worst part? He fully expected them to comply.
Okay, so this is the first time that Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni are speaking to one another, and they're exchanging text messages, and Justin Baldoni does this thing where he's just like so nice.
But Baldoni's team wasn't having it. They refused to sign off on the false statement, recognizing it for what it was, an attempt to gaslight the public. The refusal was a major turning point because it exposed just how far Ryan Reynolds was willing to go to protect Blake's image. And when Baldoni didn't play along, Ryan and Blake escalated the situation by doubling down on their media manipulation tactics. That's when Blake's legal team started pushing the lawsuit angle even harder, leveraging PR contacts at the Daily Mail, The Hollywood Reporter, and Page Six to ensure that her version of events dominated the headlines. They weren't just playing dirty, they were weaponizing the media. And Ryan Reynolds? He was right there orchestrating it. The same man who spent years mocking Hollywood politics and positioning himself as the anti-Hollywood actor was now doing exactly what he had pretended to be against. He wasn't just supporting Blake, he was pulling the strings, making sure everything stayed within his control.
He literally tells Ryan he wants to be friends with you. And I could just see Ryan sitting there like, yes, this is exactly what I want, a puppy to kick in the mouth. And you'll do what I say. So I'm going to show you these exchanges. This is Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni. If you guys have not read through them, I recommend that you go on to the site to...
But the public isn't blind. The more people started connecting the dots, the more Ryan's supportive husband act started looking like something else entirely. Obsessive control. The desperation in those texts, the bizarre tattoo offer, the attempts to manipulate media coverage, it all pointed to a man who couldn't handle not being in control of his wife. And if this is what he's willing to do in public, what does that say about their relationship behind the scenes? Ryan seems to be in hot water, no doubt, and what happens next is anyone's guess. So if you want to stay updated, hit that subscribe button below.